Welcome to Sew Very Easy. My name is Laura, and I have 5 days to make a hostess gift. So I'm going to make a nice square 24.5-inch table topper, and I happen to have 5 fat quarters to make it with. My fat quarters are from Timeless Treasures. It's a nice Christmas fabric. So I have that fun Christmas print. I'm going to add a red, a green, a soft white, and a little bit of this fun checked fabric. So the table topper is going to have a 2.5-inch border and one big block. The block is going to have 4 corners, 4 arms, and a middle. So here is a working sheet on what we're going to be looking at. I have 4 corners, 4 arms, that center, and 1 border. I'll put this in the description so you can color it in and choose some fabrics that you would like. So this corner, which we need 4 of, needs to start with a 5.5-inch square, 2 5.5-inch sides that are 3 inches, which leaves this to be a 3-inch square. So let's sew and make these 4 corners first. So I have 4 corners done, and they do equal 8-inch squares. I need a 5.5-inch square for the center. Now I'm going to be making these little arms. And the little arms are going to look like this. And to do these, we are going to do them with paper piecing. We only need 4, so they'll go together quick and be nice and accurate. And as long as you print this out at 100%, from edge to edge will be 8 inches. And we're going to need to print out 4 of them. And the fabric we're going to need to make those little arms are 4 4-inch squares, 4 green 4.5-inch squares, 2 red squares at 7 inches, and 1 black square at 7 inches. So let's start with the green. The green is going to go in that center, but we need to put that green fabric on the back of the paper. So it's fitting right in there. Just hold it up to the light to make sure that A1 is covered completely with the seam allowance around it. And then I'm going to put a little glue to keep that on. The next thing we're going to do is add on these white corners. So take those white 4-inch squares and cut them in half. This is where they're going to go. By temporarily gluing that down, it's just going to be easier to work with. I can flip this over, and now I'm going to work on the A2 side. This is where the white triangles are going to go. Take some kind of a plastic, and I use template plastic, and have it line right up against that one line. Then you're going to fold this back. So you're folding it back right on that black line. Now we're going to trim a 1/4 inch. So you can use a ruler, or if you have an add a quarter, that's a great ruler to use. What it is flat on one side, then on the other side it has a 1/4 inch lip. So that is going to fit right along the paper. So we're going to be able to trim off any little extra. So we're going to have a 1/4 inch. When we look at it on this side, when we flip that up, that 1/4 inch is underneath. So pull that paper back flat and take one of the triangles and place it on. We are going to be stitching from this side of the paper, but I do want to pin this down, so I like to use pins that have a flat head on them. So that's going to hold it down enough for me to work on, and because I'm stitching here along this seam, I want to make sure that those pins stay out of the way. And I like to stitch off of that line, on the line, and come right off. So A1 was the green square, A2 was that white corner. Now when we take out those pins, we're going to be able to fold that back. You can iron it if you want, but do not use steam, and just use a very light pressing. And then right in this corner, which I can see that paper underneath, I'm just going to put a little piece of glue just to hold that down for me. I now need to add on the second white sides. So I'm going to turn that paper over, put a piece of cardstock or something thin, and fold that paper right along that line. I will need to pull off some of that stitching from that paper, fold right along that line, and trim a 1/4 inch. Now when that paper goes back, I have the 1/4 inch and it's in this area. Same thing, I'm going to be able to just put those white corners on, pin along the back away from that seam allowance. This is the line that's going to be stitched, which happens to be A3. Once that corner's been stitched on, give it a very light press, put a little bit of glue right in that corner, and that's just going to help keep it down while we're working on it. So we have the white on the green. Now we're going to add the red and the black, but we're going to prepare the red and the black fabric first. Both the red and the black need to be cut in half twice. So we now have 4 black triangles and 8 red triangles. We could start and add the 4 red triangles onto A4. So if we turn that upside down and then just move the paper right over top, that's the position that that's going to go in. So you can see where that's going to go. We're wanting that straight edge, but we are going to have to roll back that paper. So I'm going to fold that paper right along that A6 line. When I do, I'm going to have to peel back some of that stitching and trim that 1/4 inch off. That also takes off the dog ears. So the 1/4 inch is underneath. I know the red piece is going along this line, so I can flip here, pin so I'm not in the way of the seam allowance, go to the machine, and I'm going to stitch that A6 line. Fold back, give a little press, and a little glue just to hold that point down. We are going to need to do the black and the red, but we're going to do these 2 pieces together first. So I'm going to take those black triangles and the red triangles, and I'm going to sew them together right along that line. Once these 2 pieces are sewn together, we have a large triangle that we're going to add up just like we would any piecing. But first, we need to trim off that seam allowance along the back. Fold the paper over along that long line, trim off that 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now match up the pieces. Be sure that those 2 center seams match up and nestle together. Pin the fabric, bring it to the machine, and this is our last stitch. Now when I remove those pins and pull that back, put a little glue and just make sure that that seam line matches up. We can now trim down these blocks. Just follow those outside lines, leaving a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And now we have 4 beautifully pointed blocks ready to go. That's all we need for the center of the quilt. Put the 4 corners so that the whites are facing in around this big piece. And now those paper pieced arms are going to fit right in between. So this is the complete center. So let's sew that together in rows, and then we can put those rows together. As I stitch my pieces together, I do leave the paper on, and I stitch on the paper side. And that way I can get right to those points. Now when I open it up, all of those points match, and I'm ready for my borders. I've designed this to have one simple 2.5 inch border all the way around. Once those 2 sides are done and my squares are on, I'm going to be able to join those up, top and bottom. Once that top is complete, I will then remove the papers. Having those 4 arms done with that paper piecing just makes it precise. We don't have to worry about measurements. We just get to put it together. So we have 4 simple corners, 4 arms, 1 center square, 1 border, and we're done. This now equals 24.5 inches. This has been a fun project that I was able to use up 5 fat quarters, and I'm going to be able to get it quilted and in time for my gift. I used Christmas fabric, but this would be great in any fabric. Thank you for joining me today on Sew Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe and come on back. Let's see what we're working on next time in the sewing room. Bye for now.